Given to everything that's happened in the last week, I wanted to talk to you all about one of my favorite war movies from Vietnam. Now, this is actually based on a fictional story, a fictional novel by a writer named Nicholas Povet called Gardens of Stone, released in 1987 and directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Of course, if you know that name, he's the man who directed the Godfather trilogy that won over a dozen Academy Awards in the span of 3 films. As I said earlier, this is based on a fictional story. But when you actually watch this movie, you have the feeling that this really happened, because it probably did, and it's just a story that nobody told. This film has a lot of amazing acting talents, bringing Nicholas Povet's characters to life, including James Cann, who you probably all remember as Santino Corleone from the first Godfather film, as Army Sergeant First Class Claire Hazard, also starring Anjelica Houston as Samantha Davies, a reporter for the Washington Post and Hazard's girlfriend, James Earl Jones, the voice of Doom, as Sergeant Major Goody Nelson, the regimental Sergeant Major, Dean Stockwell, before he became Al Calavici, and Quam Leap as Captain Homer Thomas, Hazard's company commander, Mary Stuart Masterson as Rachel Feld, Dick Anthony Williams as First Sergeant Slasher Williams, and a young Lawrence Fishburne as squad leader. The story centers around a young man named Specialist Jackie Willow, played by DB Sweeney, who's amping to go to Vietnam and become an Army officer. The story is focused completely on the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, aka the Old Guard. Now, if you've seen funerals at Arlington National Cemetery or parades inside Washington, D.C., you would recognize who this division is. They provide escorts for military funerals, and of course, they guard the tomb of the unknown soldier. Ever since I heard about this division, I saw the training these soldiers get, and it is just as hard as military basic training. Much harder even. Their appearance, their marching, their uniforms, everything impeccable. To the look, the feel, and everything about the Old Guard has to be incredibly perfect for the mission they're on, which is to guard Arlington National Cemetery, the tomb of the unknown soldier, and to provide escorts for military funerals and the President of the United States himself. But let's get back to the movie. The year is 1968. And Jackie Willow reports for duty for the 3rd Infantry Regiment. And he encounters Claire Hazard, obviously James Cann's character, who wants to be an instructor at the Army Infantry School at Fort Benning to train soldiers to get them ready for Vietnam. But unfortunately, his transfer is denied, and he's stuck at Fort Myer, Virginia with the 3rd Infantry Regiment. He calls them toy soldiers and hates the job until Willow, the son of a friend and former soldier from Korea, is assigned to the platoon. And he sees it as an opportunity to make sure at least one man comes home from Vietnam alive. But unfortunately, Jackie Willow, he's hell-bent on going to Vietnam. I mean, really hell-bent. Even with everything that's gone wrong for the United States there, he still wants to go and fight, like his father did before him in the Korean War. Even the regimental Sergeant Major Goody Nelson, played by James Earl Jones, can't talk him out of it. Along the way, Claire Hazard meets Samantha Davis, Anjelica Houston's character, who's a reporter and a writer for the Washington Post, but who's against the war for very different reasons. During the course of this movie, we see the Old Guard in the performance of their duties, performing drill maneuvers, war games, but most importantly, performing funeral escorts for recent casualties in the time of war. And the Guard the tomb of the unknown soldier. During his tour of duty with the 3rd Infantry Regiment, he reconnects with an old school sweetheart, Rachel Fell, played by Mary Stuart Masterson. They get back together and eventually they get married just before Jack Willow is accepted to Officers Candidate School, which he completes and is shipped off to Vietnam to serve into a combat unit. I think you all know where this is going to lead, unfortunately. During the course of this movie, all of these main characters become incredibly close, almost like a surrogate family. And the family is completely torn apart by the news that Lieutenant Willow was killed in action. And we see everyone in this film express their heartbroken feelings about the one soldier, the one man in their lives that drew them all together. And I think that's the most amazing thing about this particular movie. How one person's life and his death can draw a lot of people to him. And I think that's the beauty about this particular movie. Beyond the movies that Francis Ford Coppola has made, like the Godfather movies or even Apocalypse Now, I think this is one of the movies that he was really a master in. It tells a very heartwarming and heartbreaking story about war, about sacrifice, and about how one person's life can make all the difference in the ways that no one could thought possible.